Okay, I want to talk through the next lesson that's coming up as being due. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you. Sorry I was not around day before yesterday. I was in a meeting all day long, and so I was not able to have small group meets. So if anybody wants to jump in and follow along here with me, you're welcome to do that. I'm taking a look at what is due. Okay, the Elements of Drama Trifles is actually due today. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and record the Character Study 14 because it's the next thing that's due. Again, if you have any questions about trifles or have any problems with it, please let me know. But I'm going to move ahead with the Character Study of 14. Okay, so we're going to examine the main characters and their points of view along with the themes from this drama entitled 14. Additionally, you're going to compare the drama to the short story version that's called The Dinner Party, paying attention to how both of these structures contribute to the meanings of the stories. Now, notice it's the same story. It's just told two different ways, two different structures, okay? The text structure of Alice Gerstenberg's is a play, okay? And the text structure of The Dinner Party is the short story. So that's what it means when it's talking about text structure or structures of text. There's plays or drama, there's short stories, there's poems, there's all different types of printed structures. So we want to compare and contrast the differences.
In this lesson, you will examine the main...
That's not what I meant to do. Sorry. Okay. So first you want to warm up by thinking of two people from your life and write about them. They could be two family members, they could be two of your friends, or two people you see on a regular basis, like teachers, but you don't really see them right now. So think about friends or family. How would you describe these people if you were to write to them, if you were writing them as a character in a story? Okay, and I need you to write 2 to 3 paragraphs describing their appearance and their personality. So imagine that they are characters. How would you describe their appearance and their personalities? After you do that, you're going to watch the video introduction. Here's a little bit about the background of the author. It's always interesting to me to read about the person behind the story, because I always wonder what prompted the author to write the story or to create this story, because it's just an interesting thing to think about. And then you've got some background information about the short story, the drama itself, the play. Okay? It's important for you to stop on this slide and read all of it. Don't just skip it because there's a lot of words. The features of a drama or a play are just like a story. If you notice, you remember this elements of plot with short stories. Well, plays follow the same plot, basically. Let's look at the plot elements in detail. Of course, the beginning is the exposition. It introduces the reader to the story. Usually at the beginning, you learn about the setting and you start to learn a little bit about the main characters. You may even learn about a little conflict at the beginning of the story when it's a play. And then the rising action. Once the readers get to that part, a lot of the goals, the loyalties, the purpose that the characters are, the things that they're doing, a lot of that is revealed in the rising action and the conflict. The plot gets complicated usually, and it starts building toward the climax. Of course, the climax is the major turning point in the story. It's the part where the conflict reaches a peak. Characters are forced to take action, and the action that they take is important, and it affects how the story will end. Okay. You're going to answer those questions on the previous slide. I went ahead and forwarded it because my slide had the answers on it. But the next slide here is understanding characters. And if you notice, there's a picture here of 3 actors, theater actors, and they're reading their script for a play. The characters in the play that tell the story. And through their words, the plot unfolds, and the author conveys the message using the characters' words and actions. Okay, that's how the author conveys a message or exposes a theme when you're watching a play. He does it using the characters. So in order to pay attention or to understand the characters, you got to pay attention to what they say and what they do. That's how you determine the theme and the plot behind a play. You have to really follow the characters. Okay. Sometimes you have to read between the lines because sometimes it's what they don't say. You have to look at their body language and their expressions. And you have to notice their thoughts and their feelings to pick up on their motivations. Okay. And it's a natural thing when you watch a play, if the actors are doing a good job acting, because the way they act should be realistic since you're watching it as a live performance. But they do things that you're going to relate to, things that you can identify with. Characters and point of view. Remember, first person point of view is when you're going to see in reading the play, you're going to see I, me, my, myself. That means the narrator is inside the story. Second person point of view is signaled by the use of the pronoun you, and that's when the narrator is speaking to the reader. Okay? And then third person in a drama is the narrator is describing the events as an outsider. They are not a part of the action, but they do know a lot about what's going on. They're just not a part of the story. They're not in the action. A character can also have a point of view, but it's slightly different from what's meant by the narrator's point of view. Keep that in mind. The character's point of view is the way the character looks at something or how they feel about someone or something, okay? And that's their point of view, their perspective. But when we're talking about the narrator's point of view, we're looking at first person, second person, or third person, okay? Now we're going to look at an excerpt from 14, and you're going to examine the characters, the plot, and the narrator's point of view. So go ahead and click on the link and read the excerpt and then move on to the next slide. You can pause my slide or my video, read the excerpt, and then pick back up after you read the excerpt. Okay. This activity is going to help you analyze how lines of dialogue reveal the aspects of the character and cite the text evidence that strongly supports your analysis of what the text says explicitly, which means directly, as well as inferences drawn from the text, conclusions you make from what based on the text. And you're going to analyze how differences in the points of view of the characters create effects like suspense or humor. Okay, so you're going to look at the points of view of the characters. In this activity, you're going to analyze the characters, the plot, and the point of view. Thinking about the characters, you're going to note evidence from the text, and then you're going to describe the characters' traits, describe them, and what motivates them, okay? One character has already been described for you. Then you're going to describe Miss Pringle, describe her, and then give the text evidence, and then describe Elaine, and then give the text evidence that supports what you're saying about her traits and her motivations. The second question, you're going to describe events that make up the plot elements, the moments, those special moments in the story that make up the plot, the main events. The first event has already been provided for you. You're going to put in another event for rising action, and then you're going to put in one for what you think is the climax, and then enter one for falling action, and then how does it end? And then you'll hit submit. And then question number 3, think about Miss Pringle's words and her actions. What is her point of view? How does she feel about the people she has invited to dinner? And write me a paragraph to explain how it's different from what is likely to be your point of view, okay? So you're going to compare her point of view about the people she invited to your own point of view because you're an audience member. And then evaluate yourself. How do you think you did? Rate your work on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being, I got it, I could probably teach it to somebody else, I know it so well. And then you want to write a brief evaluation of your work. Tell me what you learned and tell me what was challenging, okay? And then hit submit. Examining characters and theme, okay? Whether you're in a play or a story, authors build plots around ideas that are the focus of the events or the experiences of the characters. The ideas or themes are universal. That means that anybody around the world can understand these themes, like love or death, loss, pride, falling from grace. Those things, everybody around the world understands those. Themes are easier to figure out after you have a good grasp of the plot. So you can't tell what a theme is in a story until after you read it, okay? To recognize the themes that plots are built upon, you can ask simple questions. What's the problem in the story? How do they resolve it? It's a good one. How does the main character change over the course of the story? Okay? Their attitude maybe changes. Sometimes their looks even change that's representative of their attitudes. What ideas connect the events in the story? What does the author want you to understand about these ideas? How does the theme connect to real life? Answers to these questions will help you recognize themes in text. Guys, this is really, really important here because you've got to be able to recognize themes in text as an 8th grader. So if I were you, I would pull this out, write it down, keep it somewhere to where you can commit this to memory, because if you can do these 5 things when you are reading a story, it's going to ensure that you are able to analyze it to understand what theme is. This is a great, important slide. So, thinking about themes in a short sample, you need to read this story to yourself, okay? You can pause the audio and read it, and then we'll go on to the next slide after you have read this excerpt from your own Edmentum slide. The story's about a girl who, based on her own words and of those of her father, has a lot of faith in her abilities as a runner. In fact, she's too sure of herself. As a result, she doesn't take working out very seriously. She finishes last in her race at the state track meet. Okay? Notice here's some text evidence that shows you her attitude. I don't need coach's help. I've got the best time in the state. I'll be fine. See? So that's going to help guide you to what's going on here. Let's see what this does. Oh, to figure out theme, we've got to recognize the problem. She undergoes a change. She remembers what her father said. Two ideas that are suggested here include confidence or pride and hard work. And you can put those two together by saying confidence can be misplaced, or sometimes we can get overly confident. Talent can fail when it's not backed up with hard work. What other themes can you think of based on this short story? This activity is going to help you determine the theme of the text and analyze its development over the course of the text, including its relationship to the characters in the setting and the plot. Now read the directions, type your response, and check your answer. At the end of the activity, you're going to evaluate your work again, okay? Remember, the theme is an idea that's understood from the characters, from the setting and the plot. It's universal in that it applies or is true in other texts or in real-life situations. And in this activity, you will identify and analyze the theme in the excerpt from 14. So now it's time for you to write. What is a theme of the story told in the excerpt from 14? Keep in mind, look at how the question is worded. What is a theme? That tells me there might be more than one. So you're going to just think of one of the themes that's told in the excerpt from 14 and submit it. Then give me some text evidence that shows that theme is there. Okay? And then the next part. How did the characters contribute to that theme? You can type it in your own words. You don't have to pull text evidence here, although you can if you want to. But you do need to explain how the characters contribute to the theme. And then, how did you do? Make sure and evaluate your work. Okay? Text structures. Remember, at the beginning of this presentation, I talked about plays as one type of text structure, and short stories are another type of text structure. And the text, when it's a play, is called a script, right? That's the printed version of the play. It's got descriptions of the stage. It's got a description of setting. It also has all the dialogue that the characters speak. And a play is meant to be performed rather than read because it's structured with a live public interaction with the audience in mind. It's not written in paragraphs. The breaks in the text are set mainly by dialogue. Characters are important to telling the story, and the events of the plot center around a problem and its resolution. The events are carried out, and the thoughts and feelings of the characters are communicated entirely through dialogue. There's no narrator to fill in gaps, but I will say that in some plays there are narrators, but in a lot of plays there are not. And now, in contrast, a short story is a short work of fiction that centers on one main event, organized in paragraphs, has all the elements of a novel, but it's short. Okay? The reader's interaction is individual and private. It's not public like a play. Often, since it's short, there's fewer characters. The main event is tied to the main character. Most importantly, there's usually a narrator that tells the story, that fills in the descriptions and the details that the character dialogue does not. Many times, the narrator speaks from third-person point of view, an all-knowing position that tells the reader what the characters are thinking. Now, you want to read the directions, type your response. We're going to compare 14, which you've already read, and then you're going to read the dinner party, okay? At this point, you need to stop and click on the dinner party and read it so you can know what it's about, know how it's different from 14, keeping in mind those things about plays that make them different from short stories, structure-wise. But both 14 and the dinner party tell the same story, the woman's frustration with the changing guest list for the dinner party that she planned. What are two major differences between the play and the short story? Give examples from the text to support your response. Notice it says from both texts to support your response, okay? In the introduction, Camilla was tasked with designing 2 shirts for twins that they needed to represent their traits. Like the elements of plot, Camilla got to know her clients and see the setting where they would be wearing their shirts. As the deadline approached, it was like the suspense in a story builds toward the climax. Looking at newly created shirts, just like the 2 different stories, it reveals its themes. Theme adds depth and interest to each work. You've now read the 14 and the short story, The Dinner Party. For each work, there's a different focus that makes it unique. To understand the depth in each work, you have analyzed the plot elements, you've analyzed the characters and their points of view, their perspectives. You compared text structures and you found themes. Very good. You've completed the tutorial and you're ready for the mastery test.